Hey, what's up everybody? Haskins here with another awesome build tutorial for you. Today, I'm going to show you how to build this dragster as well as the track that you're seeing right now. Now, this is using some paid parts. However, you can absolutely get this done with some free parts as well. This is so much fun when playing against friends. I highly recommend doing this in a sandbox versus a survival mode because it does get quite expensive to host a ton of different races. Also, I just wanted to mention that I will not be actually covering the signs today in this video because I didn't want the video to be like 30 minutes long. However, if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications on because I will be releasing a tutorial on that later this week. All right, well, enough of me yapping. Let's get into the build. Hey, and it never fails us the minute we start recording. It starts to storm, but hey, we're just going to move forward. So step one, we're going to grab a small car jack, and we're just going to set that down in an area where we have enough space to build. Now, this thing is a pretty long car, so give yourself enough room to build about 6 of these pieces. Now, this is the vehicle base 6, which is the 6x4x2, and we're going to slap 6 of these together. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to grab these vehicle base 3s, and we're going to put these all the way around the edge here. And now once we get to the front, we're going to put 2 of these up the middle. So we're going to nudge that over just a little bit like that. And we're going to have 2 off the front. And then we're just going to set this back and cover up all these yellow pieces with a bunch of these vehicle base 3s as well until we reach the back of the car. Next, we're going to actually start to build out the body. And in this case, we're going to start with the 12x2x1 thin floor pieces. Now, I'm choosing to use Dine-In Thin Floor 3 because I do like the black color of these. However, if you don't have the Der Burger set, you could use any 12x2x1. And what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 on both sides of the actual frame of this car here. And we're going to stack 4 of them high. So that's going to be 2, 3, and then 4. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Now, if you end up having them like this, they should be all flush stacked on top of each other. So just go ahead and knock that piece out and just reset and making sure that they're all perfectly stacked up just like that. So next, we're going to take the exact same floor pieces and we're going to butt those right up against the stacks that we've just put down. And we're going to go ahead and put 3 of these in height. Now, sometimes it's best to just let the piece, don't hit the snap mode, just let the piece rest up on top. And again, making sure that they are flush and sitting evenly on top of one another. Now what we're going to do is grab an 8x2x1 thin floor piece, and we're going to set this right up on top of the stack of 2 we just did. And we're going to make sure it's butt right up against the stack of 4 towards the back. And we're just going to place a piece down just like that. Now from here, we're going to go back to the 12x2x1s, and we're going to snap just 1 on both sides of the vehicle, just like that. To finish off the front end of the car, we're going to be using the 8x2x1s again, and we're just going to leave a little bit of space. We're going to snap 2 of them next to each other, but on the front end, that little extra space here where we're going to have 8 studs in total, and that'll give us just enough room to put down the 6x2x1s. We're going to put one on just like this, and then go ahead and snap a second one right in on the other side like that. This is going to be a nice little front end where our front wheels are going to fit right underneath. Then with the same 6x2x1 pieces, or you could use a different color of your choice. It doesn't really matter. These all could be any one of the thin floor pieces again, as long as they are the same dimensions that we're following in this step-by-step. We're going to stack 2 of them next to each other. And again, you're just going to want to line up here with where this kind of indent is here towards the front of the car. And we're going to stack 4 of these up. So that would be our 3rd and then our 4th. So we've got a stack of 2 on both sides, and this is going to be where we're going to put like our engine block. Now you could do one of 2 things here. I recommend just kind of going through some of the different pieces and finding something that you like that works. In this case, I used 4 different squadron racks and kind of just put these on top of here. But if you're doing this in survival, what you're going to do is you can go ahead and put down any one of these. I shouldn't say any one of them. The large power center is going to look a little obnoxious. I think the medium power center looks pretty good. So that fits nicely right up on top there. It looks pretty beefy as well. But because this is in a sandbox environment, these are going to be generally used for drag racing and driving a lot back and forth with some friends. I don't recommend doing this in survival, but if you were to, that's what you're going to want to do. So in this case, again, let's just go back to the squadron rack. This is just something that I found looks pretty cool on the front end. And we're just going to put 4 of these next to each other. This is basically just acting as like a mock engine head or something like that that just sticks up out of the top. It looks pretty aggressive, and I definitely like the look of that. So to close off some of these exposed vehicle bases, what I'll do next is we'll take this 6x2x1, and we're just going to set these in set like that. So we're going to basically touch the back of where we just put down this fake engine block thing, and we're just going to make sure that those are covering up just like you're seeing right now. Now feel free to, if you want to stack a couple more on top of each other like this, to maybe extend and make a little bit more dimension to the front end of the car, feel free to do that as well. At this point, you can kind of dress it up however you'd like. The shape of it is generally complete for the most part, with the exception of the kind of the tail on the back end and some of the things that we're going to put for our thrusters. But once you have that figured out, next what you're going to do is go back into your toy section under the controls, and we're going to grab a large driver's seat, and we're going to pin that all the way up against the back of this thing here. Now you're going to move it as far back as you actually can. So again, let's knock that off. You're just going to move it until it turns red, and then just nudge it forward one piece, and you should have a nice seat chilling right inside just like that. Now we're going to move towards the back end again, and we're going to grab the 6x2x1s, and we're just going to stack a bunch of these until we reach the top. So it's going to be 4 of them in total on both sides. So that will be 4 there. And we're going to create a nice little wall here to add an additional thruster on the back. Now, as you can see on this one over here, it allows you to stack 2 of the large thrusters. It's just really going to give you a lot of power to move this thing because it is somewhat heavy, but you want this thing to move as quick as possible. So we're going to create a little more space for the thruster just like that. Now, once we've got those up on the back just like that, we're going to move over to toys and grab some large thrusters. Now, the first one you're going to place down, just make sure it's good and center on the back of the vehicle. And we're going to nudge this thing up until it's basically hanging up just barely over the top of your floor pieces, just like that. And that's going to give us just enough room to stack another large thruster right underneath it without it actually hanging off the back of the vehicle. So again, the important thing here is to make sure that both of these thrusters are good and lined up straight in the middle and on top of one another. And then next, we're just going to grab 2 small thrusters, and we're going to pinch them just right onto the inside, in between the middle of them, just like that. And then again, 1 all the way over to the side, making sure that they're lined up directly across from one another. Now, if we take a look at the 2 that I've already have constructed over there, we've got the blue and red cars, heavily illuminated. Now, that is using some of the Star Wars lights. Now, these are actually a part of some of the bundles that are in the shop currently. Now, if you don't have those, don't worry. But what I'm getting at is I recommend now by adding some light to your vehicle is going to make it stand out and look much better. Now, I recommend doing this right at this stage because things like the interior part here is designed to put lights on the inside. So for the tail of the car, you can use these 18x8x6 roof pieces. Now, I do generally like to use the ones that don't have an actual frame off the back. So if you take a look at here, you'll see what I'm talking about. These are just a straight angle without any type of framework like this one here. Now, it's again comes down to personal preference, but I find that because of the length of this car, the 18x8x6 roof pieces are definitely the ones that I would recommend going with here. Now, one thing I will say is that you can use some of these free-to-pay parts. They just don't have as much of an aggressive angle as some of the other paid parts. And it is unfortunate. However, you know, again, you could use any one of the ones that you think look good. I'm just suggesting that you do use something, maybe even like this Kawara roof, where it's a 10x4x6 and is still generally going to look pretty good on the back end of this car. However, I do find that adding something that doesn't actually have the framing and is a bit longer and aggressive like this Imperial Outpost is going to allow you to not only clear the thrusters on the back, it's just aesthetically going to look much better on this length of car. Now, the other thing to mention too is the placement of this is kind of important for the aesthetic. So what I would recommend doing is lining it up with the pieces that I'm showing you right now underneath this thing and nudge it back 4 spaces. So we're going to line it up and go 1, 2, 3, 4 and just snap that in like that. Now what you're going to see is this gives it a nice aesthetic, and the distance between the actual front of the car and where this tail is a great placement for the overall look. Now it's time to start putting on our wheels. So we're going to go head on over to our toys, where we're going to go under controls and grab large powered wheels. Now we're going to have these lined up towards the bottom here, and we're just gonna snap them in. A lot of times people have been complaining on car builds in my tutorials that I have, saying it's not allowing me to put the wheels on. Like you can see right now, it's saying need supporting piece. Simply use the snap mode. In this case, if you look on the bottom of the actual screen, I am playing on Xbox, so snap mode is holding left trigger. As soon as I engage that, it is going to put these wheels right into position. Now, I do recommend checking out your spacing. Now, I like to have these lined up directly with the back here and just nudge them forward 2 spaces just like that. And we're gonna do the same exact thing on the other side. Hold snap, and then we're gonna nudge it in 2 spaces. Next up, for the controversial medium steerable wheel, or medium wheels in general topic, we're using them anyways because we don't really care that much. Sorry, Flocka. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna snap these in towards the front. We're gonna nudge it down 1 and back 2 spaces. So the reason we nudge this down 1 is because we are going to try to line up with the larger wheel in the back, so we have a nice even contact with the ground. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Now it does look a bit ugly right now because this is hanging off, but trust me, you're not gonna notice this at all once you have both wheels on. So again, we're gonna go to the front, we're gonna go down 1 space, and then we're gonna nudge it back twice. Just like that. To make it look a lot better like the 2 examples we've got up front. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna go back to these Tatooine wall beacons, which are like my favorite lights in the game currently. But again, let me go back and show you some free to use options. You could use some things like these wall candles. Anything that actually sticks towards the front of the car like this is going to work. You can add a ton of these up the front. Any type of lighting that goes on the front that's free to play, go ahead and use. However, if you do have these beacons, we're gonna just go ahead and put a nice row of these up on the front of this thing, just like this. So we're gonna line it up towards the front if we can get this thing to actually take. And we're just gonna put a bunch of these across. And I've also added a pair of lights towards the back, just above the 2 small thrusters like that. So feel free to go wild and use whatever lights that you have available that will work there. And then lastly, this is complete overkill. However, if you look at how sick these look on these vehicles and you have them available, go ahead and use these Star Wars lights I'm about to show you, or anything again that will stick to the side of the vehicle. So in this case, I'm actually using these cargo bay wall beacons, and I'm just gonna slap these things all the way across the back like this. Now, it does look a little over the top and wild, but that's okay, because if you plan on doing the full drag strip that I'm showing you inside of this tutorial, you can do 1 blue car and you can do 1 red car if you have these lights available. And now it actually looks amazing against this black flooring as well. You can see the blue and the red just light up like crazy. So feel free to go ahead and line the vehicle with those lights. And then even for more added light, we're just going absolutely wild here. We're just gonna line a bunch of these wall beacons up on the outside here, just like this. And then just repeat the exact same thing on the other side. I mean, I guess while we're at it, why not add a couple more up here by the engine block? Screw it. Let's just put as many of these as we can until, you know, this thing basically has so many lights on it, it doesn't even move. Now, these things are absolute slugs when turning, and so what I recommend doing here too is grabbing some small thrusters, and then we're just gonna go ahead and like snap these into this front piece behind the wheel there and just nudge it up 1. So we're gonna put 1 right there, and then we're gonna go ahead and put 1 on the other side as well. Now these could be used to assist your turning. Now I don't know why, for whatever reason, it's not accepting it on this side right now, but you're gonna just mess around with it until it turns green and just have them both nudged up right behind the wheels, just like that on both sides. Now we're gonna wanna take a wrench and add it to our inventory. And then from here, what we're gonna do is just make sure that all the thrusters are tuned the way that they need to be. So we're gonna highlight on the thruster that we put up front here. We're gonna turn off channel 3 and make this one channel 1. And then just make the opposite side a channel 2. It just can't be channel 1 because we want these to work independently. And then we're just going to leave all of these rear ones defaulted to channel 3, so nothing to do there. And then the last thing we want to do is just go around and make sure all of your wheels are forward facing and rotating like that. Now these ones are going backwards, so all you need to do is change direction to be moving forward on the set that's moving in the wrong direction. And now you are ready to go. So all we need to do is drop down our car jack. Now, one common issue that I've seen when building this car and several others is once you drop it off your car jack, you simply get into the seat to take off and you are absolutely stuck in place. This thing is not moving anywhere. So what I've normally done in this case is I'm simply going to leave the game and I'm going to load back in. And at that point, your vehicle should actually be working. Now I've loaded back in, so once I jump in the seat, I should actually be able to move, and in this case, things are looking just good. Now again, some driving tips. This thing does not turn because of how long it is, so what I recommend doing is those thrusters that we put on the front, let's use those to assist in our turning. Now all you need to do is just give it a little bit of gas and then continue to turn in the direction that you were going, and then simply hit that same direction and go in reverse, and that is going to be a way to easily turn around. Now this thing looks slick. This thing is really cool when hitting these drag strips. Now unfortunately, it looks like one of my other vehicles right now has sunk into the floor. You gotta love LEGO Fortnite, ladies and gentlemen. So we're just gonna hop in this thing and see if we can get moving, which just like that, we were able to pop up. Let's give this thing a go on the track and let's see what it's all about. 3, 2, 1, let's get out of here. Now let's take a little bit of a speed test on this thing. We're moving about 20 meters a second. This thing is absolutely cooking. If you pay attention to that thing. Now, unfortunately, sometimes the vehicles get a little bit laggy when you're driving around in this game. It's just a part of it. But yeah, this thing looks slick. We've got our finish sign here. And this thing is an absolute blast when racing against friends. So an official drag racing strip is 1,000 feet, and that equates to 304.8 meters. Now, an easy way to build this is finding an area on shore where you can build up over water just like this and connecting to islands, or you can even build it straight out into the ocean, which is what I recommend because as you can see, I fell a little bit short here. Now, you can check the distance by simply dropping a marker at one end and traveling all the way to the destination point to see how many meters you've got. In this case, I've got about 286, which is totally fine because you do get 2 full thruster boosts out of these vehicles until you reach the finish line, which does give it a little bit of a variable and make it a competitive race. Now, building the track itself is an extremely easy build. However, it is very tedious because of how many pieces you actually have to lay down. So bear with me on this one. Now, all we need to do is use any type of 16 by 16 by 1 wide floor. Now, in this case, I'm using the dine-in, but there are some free options available for you as well. Now, we're going to start by building on one end of our track, and this is going to be 4 of these wide. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll have a 4th one here. Now, the other thing I want to mention, shout out to the Long Time Lounge for the idea of reinforcement. This thing has frost pine 16 by 16 by 1s underneath running the whole entire way. That way this thing would be extremely hard to take down. So feel free to do that if you'd like, but it could be totally unnecessary as long as you're careful with your pickaxe. And we're just gonna build those 16 by 16 by 1s 4 wide from the start all the way to the other end at the finish. For the guardrails on the track, you can come into your wall section and go all the way down to half walls. Now, there are a ton of different free options you can use, like I'm showing you right now. Or if you want to mirror this build exactly, I'm actually using these Imperial Castle half walls. And what you're going to do is you're just going to simply start at one end and start building your walls all the way until you reach the opposite end. And do the exact same thing on the other side. Now, another thing you could do to dress this up is start adding some fencing up on top of your half walls. Now, in this case, I am using the laser fences. So if you go on over here, these are actually a part of the Imperial set as well. Now, there are a ton of various different rails you could use that are free, or some other ones that you want to use for maybe some of the paid bundles, but I recommend maybe adding some of those for some additional details. Now, in order to get this checkered pattern look, what you're going to do is you're actually going to bust out a row of these 16 by 16 by 1s that we have here, and this is going to also require having both the Beachy Boulevard and the Durburger set. So I'm going to just move quickly through this just in case you don't have it. But what I'm using here is the 8x8x1 for the beachy floor, and then I'm just alternating that pattern back and forth like this. And I'm also using the equal size of the dine-in floor, which is the black one here, and just creating a nice checkered pattern across the start and finish lines. And lastly, what you're seeing during this clip is in the middle here, you can use some type of railing or fence pieces to draw up a divider between both sides of the track. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed today's tutorial, and check out some of my other videos where I have several things like flying ships, different types of buildings and things that I walk through step by step as well. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Haskins signing off. I will catch you all in the next one.